Welcome to the Faith to You podcast. I'm Pastor Caleb Schroeder. I'm here with Toby Darrington, and we're going to continue talking about all of life, all for the glory of God. So we've made this distinction that there is no distinction. There's no sacred secular split, that we need to take our faith into the workplace, into our homes, into the church. We need to be the same person all the time. And Toby's somebody that I look to as a model of that. He's somebody that I see as an example for all of us for how to be the same person all the time. And I was telling him earlier that one of the reasons I know he's the same in the workspace is that he's worked with my brother for years. Right. So my brother Critter and him have been partners for AMR when they were EMTs together. They went to paramedic school together. Now they both work for LA County Fire. And so my brother's just told me like consistently that Toby is the same at work as he is in the home, as he is in the church. And a big part of it is that he's just unflappable. So I'm going to try to flap him here. No. So he's very patient. He's kind. He brings a Christian ethic into his work. And so I want to just ask you some questions about that today, Toby. So what are some of the maybe ethical issues that you face in your workspace as a LA County firefighter, where you need to make sure that you're bringing your faith to work with you? What are some of the challenges, or just what are some of the ways that you do that?
Well, the firefighter kind of stereotype is not always the best one. Sometimes they can be very cynical. They a lot of times around the kitchen table, they'll talk about girls in kind of a disrespectful way. So it's always been a bit challenging, to hold my faith and keep my and act out my faith consistently.
Yeah.
They say that talking, swearing like a sailor is a thing. Well, I think probably sailors don't swear as much as firefighters do. So, and I've always held myself to a standard of not cussing, and trying to like make my speech wholesome as wholesome as I can, because who can control the tongue? Yeah. So, oftentimes guys who I've worked with for a while, something I'll notice is they're about to, maybe drop an F-bomb, and they'll kind of like come up short, and they'll say, some other substitute, like dang or something or whatever. So I have noticed that they're noticing the way that I am, the way that I speak, and the words that I don't use, some of the conversations that I won't jump in on, maybe talking about, kind of lewdly about a woman or something like that. So it can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's the ethics. The other component where we really bring our faith to work is with excellence. Our work should be markedly different than anybody else's. When you're a firefighter, you should be the best firefighter there is, not because you're working for LA County, not because you're working for your chief, but because you're working for the Lord. You're working heartily as unto the Lord. So how do you, what are ways that you strive to be excellent as you work to the Lord in LA County Fire?
Well, as a firefighter, I'm a paramedic firefighter. A vast majority of the calls that we run on are medical calls. We're not always fighting fires. Yeah. Fires are fun when we get them. We love fires. And that's when we actually drive very fast sometimes. But they're few and far between. So mostly what we're doing is we are the Band-Aid box, and we're going to your abdominal pains, your chest pains, your shortness of breath, your traffic collisions, your broken bones, your accidents, etc. Whatever you can think of that you might call 911 for medically, that's what we're showing up for. And it can sometimes be challenging with patients sometimes, because we'll have our frequent flyers who call for things that you wouldn't think that someone would call 911 for. They have indigestion, for example. Yeah. And I've always tried to challenge myself to live out my faith, even with those patients. I've messed up a few times, but and try to be as treat them as humanely as I can, and be patient with them. So I know patience is one of the fruits of the Spirit, and I try to live that out. And sometimes I'll have that annoying patient who I'll try to talk to them kindly, and the rest of the trip to the hospital in the back of the ambulance, it can turn around, and then by the time we get there, we're having a really great conversation sometimes.
Yeah.
So if I want to be as Christ-like as I can, which means that even with a person that can be very hard to love and is very prickly at the onset, I want to try to give them that kind of love that Christ shows me. You know, that patience, that giving them that chance, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I can testify. My brother's told me he's seen you doing that. He's told me he's been convicted by that as he's been working with you, you know, seeing how patient you are with people that he just wants to write off, and that not making a distinction. So a big part of the way that we make sure there's no separation is that wherever we are, we diffuse the fragrance of Christ, and Jesus is love. He's love incarnate. So you talked a little bit about loving your clients. You know, what does loving your coworkers look like in LA County Fire?
Well, we all have our little things that we do that can, because we work 24-hour shifts. So I'm living with my coworkers in the station. We're eating at the same table. We're running all the same calls, and sometimes each other's little traits can kind of become wearing on you.
Yeah.
You know, and learning how to, like, you know, lump the small things and realize, you know, hey, I'm just being a little grouchy right now. Like, that's not a big deal. It helps that I come from a family of 11 kids.
Yeah.
You know, being able to deal with like little personality traits that maybe are not always pleasant to me. But I oftentimes, the way that I'll look at someone or try to look at them is like, I don't know. Maybe this is kind of hard to explain, but try to envision them as like a little kid, like in their most like innocent, most vulnerable stage. Sometimes I try to see the little kid in everybody. So that kind of helps me sometimes see past some of the flaws. And I can only hope that they can see past some of my flaws, because you know, I'm sure I'm replete with little things that annoy them too, you know?
Yeah.
So, just learning to live with people on a day-to-day basis. And when there is something that you need to bring up to them, something that's too major just to lump it, being able to do it from a place of humility. A little bit of humility goes a long ways when you have to bring something up to someone. Yeah. And not from a place of righteous indignation, because realizing that I've fallen, and that I am where I am because of Christ's graciousness to me, and his humility of taking on man's form in order to rescue me from who I am, and who I could be. So humility goes a long ways when you do have to bring something up. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. And that viewing them as a child, I think, is so important, because a lot of times people get upset with you because you've hurt them. And the illustration I love to use with people is, you know, if you step on a child's toes, you're not going to tell them they shouldn't cry because you didn't mean to. And so same thing with people, you know, sometimes they're hurt and you're like, well, it's kind of ridiculous that they're hurt. But if you think of them like a vulnerable child, and I love that you're saying you don't just think of them as a vulnerable child and like you're all superior. You also recognize, I hope they think the same way of me. So you're not thinking of others as more significant than yourself. And you're bringing that into your workplace as you love people well. As a firefighter. So something else that is a blessing to me as your pastor and your friend, we've known each other, I don't know how many years, maybe 30 years, something like that. Yeah. We sort of grew up in the Allen Valley together. We're actually close in age, even though we don't look like it.
You look much younger than me.
Yeah, sure I do. Thank you for that. Yeah, thinking of others as more significant than yourself. I appreciate that. And actually, we were neighbors for several years, because my wife and I, when we were first married, we lived on the property that your family was on. So you were right behind us. You'd shoot our rabbits for us and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But one of the things I love about the way that you integrate your faith across your life is how you're plugged into our church. You've been single for a lot of years, and you faithfully redeem your singleness for the church. This just last year, you went with our growth year students. You got a bunch of extra time off. You saved up time from for the fire department, and you went to Israel, and then you went on with our students to the Dominican Republic, and you just serve faithfully there and just leading. And then you're here on Tuesday nights helping out with our youth, and you're constantly serving in different capacities. So talk to me a little bit about why do you do that? Why do you serve in the church? What's your motivation for serving in the church?
I have been given much, and I'm thankful for that. And living the thankful life is not just saying thank you. Thankfulness demands an action. Yeah. And it's not from a place of compulsion, but I've been given some great role models when I was young, when I was in a place of wondering, what do I do with my time? Who am I? That transition, especially from boy to man. I had some great role models in that time. And they gave me a lot of time. They gave me some great instruction, took me on hikes, took me out hunting, and we did some great stuff. And where would I be without those role models? I have no idea, but I know that they really, they loved on me with their time and with their teaching and their instruction. So I've always had a heart for young men, especially, and kind of giving them my time and hey, here's how you do this, here's how you do that, and just enjoying their company too, So for me, it's a no-brainer. It's very easy to want to get plugged into youth ministries because of that. Out of a place of thankfulness for the time that adult men that they invested in me when I was a young teenage boy.
Yeah, I love man. That thankfulness is an action as well as something we say, that you demonstrate thankfulness with your life. Yeah,
it's dead without works, basically, like faith.
Yeah, it's interesting. I interviewed Josie recently. We talked about her accident. She actually talked about you being there, but she's talking about in suffering that thankfulness is the way we glorify God, and you're explaining in service the way we glorify God is with thankfulness. So bringing that thankfulness glorifies God, because people are like, who are you thanking? What is this for? Why are you doing this? And then you have an opportunity to let people know it's for God's glory. I'm doing this for the glory of God. So you're glorifying God well. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. God bless.